Now, let's kind of move on from the ball here. After the ball, as you can imagine, nobody had good things to say about Darcy. You know, Mrs. Bennett was actually quite, quite bitter. You know, quite harsh. Yeah, Lizzie loses nothing by having him not like her. You know, he's nothing for her. He's a most disagreeable. He's a horrid man. You know, I mean, she's just so over dramatic with everything. You know, and Austin put it. His character was decided. You know, he was the proudest, most disagreeable man in the world, and everybody hoped that he would never come there again. I mean, that's a line from the book. You know, so over dramatic. Nobody likes the man. Everybody hopes he stays away. His character is decided by the consensus of other people, you know, and I just found, you know, that again, that goes back to that superficiality there, that just little stuff like that I found to be quite funny. But again, it's the opinions of other people that establish fact. And that's what they think the fact is for Darcy. It's that he's a horrid, wretched man who nobody likes and nobody ever could possibly like. And I quite detest the man. You know, that's what she said. And everything is spoken in such absolutes. You know, there is no good to be found in Darcy at all. He is absolutely, totally just bad, you know. And then Mrs. Bennett takes her assumptions and her opinions as just gospel truth. You know, there can be no argument. This case is settled. Darcy is just a filthy, horrible person. I just thought that was funny.
That's right. Yeah. She doesn't have a very subtle view of people. She doesn't see the shades of gray. I mean, and I think in part it's because she's looking at, well, what can they do for her? And
right.
Given the way he treated Elizabeth, he didn't take any interest in them, wasn't friendly to them. There's nothing he can do for them. Well, he's useless.
Right. Yes, exactly. He is of no use to me. Therefore, he is totally useless as a person. And I think that is excellent because it's a very self-centered mindset, you know? And just, and I'm not saying Mr. Bennett should make fun of his wife or laugh at her and ridicule her, but I can see why he thinks she's funny. You know, because she's so, just to sit back and watch her put on this over dramatic show, and you know, her opinions are just so important. I mean, she's got an opinion on everybody and everything, and her opinions are always kind of half-cocked and thoughtless. But there are people like that. That's a real people. There's so many people that are willing to voice their opinions, and they just base their opinions. They take them, I have an opinion, and therefore that is gospel fact. You're never going to change my mind about it. And they base their opinion just on like superficial assumptions. That's a real person. There are a lot of people who act that way, just like Miss Bennett.
Well, I mean, that's where the humor comes from, is because we've seen that before, and that's why it's funny. I mean, otherwise it would just be like, well, why would someone act that way? I mean, the whole humor is that she's depicting something true about human nature.
Yes.
And one thing I like about Mrs. Bennett that's funny is that she has zero knowledge about herself. I mean, she'll say things like, well, I never complain. People who never complain are never pitied. And it's like, well, what do you think you're doing right now?
Yeah, she wants pity.
I mean, she says so many things about herself. She has no idea what kind of person she is. So, of course, she has no idea what kind of people. She doesn't know anybody else either.
She's not self-reflective at all. And she never stops and thinks about what she's going to say before she says it. She just emotes. She just verbally emotes. You know what I mean? I'm feeling this.
Mm-hmm.
And you often know that our feelings often don't always make sense. You know what I mean? Our feelings aren't always reasonable. We may have an opinion or a feeling that's not correct at all. But, you know, I just don't like that person. Why? I don't like the way he parts his hair. Therefore, I don't like that person. You know, that's just a nonsensical reason to not like somebody. And that's what Mrs. Bennett does. She just emotes verbally. There's no thought or reason or rationale to it at all. Her little
but wouldn't you agree, Colin? Wouldn't you agree that if she had been married to a husband who would sort of listen to her patiently and say, well, that maybe think about this, maybe consider that the way someone parts his hair doesn't tell you anything about his character. I mean, maybe with a better husband that she might have sort of learn to control her own emotions
Yes.
and maybe have more
Yes.
self-awareness. Well, I was going to say part of the problem is she isn't naturally intelligent the way Mr. Bennett is, but she's very unaware of like what she does and doesn't know. I mean,
Yes.
she isn't aware that she has any kind of deficiency in her judgment of other people.
And aren't those the most dangerous people? They're
Right.
unaware
That's what's it's okay not to know things, but what is dangerous is not to know that you don't know, and that's the position Mrs. Bennett is in.
It's so true. It's so true. And
Because we all are stupid at times.
We do.
Even a lot of times. Right.
And see,
And
I
think that's like part of what you get from this book is it makes me stop and think, well, how often am I just, flying off or making a judgment or just being really stupid and I don't know it. And I don't know. I just feel like reading Jane Austen, it makes me think about things like that more. Like,
that's why it's so important to have a spouse, would be it a husband or a wife, that will actually listen to you. That way you don't go through and voice these ridiculous opinions in public. They serve as a good filter, because there will be times here at the house, and I do it, I sound something off to my wife, this person did this and it really aggravated me, or what, and she'll be like, you're totally misreading that. And I'll be like, really? She's like, yes, that's incorrect. And I'll be like, oh, okay. And then she'll explain why I'm incorrect. And then I'll be like, huh, well, that just completely went over my head. I didn't pick up on that or whatever, and it's good to have somebody who will listen to you. They provide a good filter, and they keep you from making a public fool of yourself, and that's why that's where Mr. Bennett fails. If he did actually listen to his wife, maybe she wouldn't feel the need to go say this stuff to anybody who will listen, because she knows her husband won't really listen to her. So she'll just talk to anybody who's willing to give her an ear. Or just anybody who's not even.
That's really true.
And that's
just anybody.
Right. And that's where it's so important. That's where Mr. Bennett fails as a husband. And that's why it's so important as a husband or as a wife to actually listen to what your spouse is saying and what they feel, because oftentimes you're that sounding board that they need to know whether what they're saying is right or what they're saying is erroneous. And that's what part of it. It's hard to make the time to listen to somebody you don't respect, And that's why it's so important to marry somebody that you really respect and that you have affection for, is because when I start mouthing off, Amanda will listen to me and she'll set me straight, and she'll do it in a nice way. And I'll do the same with her. You have to learn how to interact with each other. And that's why they're married. That's why this family seems so chaotic. And you can trace it back to the marriage deficiencies of Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. I mean, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it goes to his relationships, especially with the younger daughters too. He doesn't listen to them. Well, why does he think they act so silly and go running off trying to get attention from any man? Well, I don't know. Maybe if their father paid more attention to them. I mean, it's almost a cliche, but Jane Austen saw it, and it's a pattern you see in real life. A girl who doesn't get the attention and the security from her father, it doesn't set up a girl to make wise decisions.
So they end up going with whoever gives them attention, be it a good man or a bad man. They end up being attracted to the person who just shows them the affection that they, or just not even the affection, the attention that they want. And that's when girls get mixed up with bad guys. And
yes, it happens. Yeah.